Hello and welcome to Landscape Photography World, the podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your host on this show, talking to landscape photographers about their motivations, likes and dislikes. This time I'm talking to Glen Sinclair about his amazing international landscapes. Glen from Brisbane has created a stunning portfolio of landscape images from around the world. His work encompasses the natural world in dreamy light and shade, with a strong emphasis on sharing imagery from his travels. Self-taught, Glen's work shows a mastery of both in-field and post-processing techniques that deliver a polished and beautiful set of work. His passion for the art remains a hobby that he uses to relax and recover from his day-to-day stresses, and is currently investigating setting up his own website and starting to share tutorials. We discuss how he balances his passion for travel and photography with his day job, his local haunts on the Sunshine Coast of Queensland, and a whole lot more. I hope you enjoy the show. G'day, Glen. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. How's your day been?
Yeah, good. Busy, as I guess nearly everyone's is.
Yeah, definitely. So why don't you hit me up with the Glen Sinclair story to date?
With photography?
Yeah, sure. Well, you can tell me about it. I don't care.
Yeah, well, I think for me, I started off just, even as a kid, we'd go on holidays. I remember one of my earlier memories, we went to the Grand Canyon in the US and just had one of those little film cameras of my dad's and took some photos and came back. And I think for a lot of us, it's you get that feedback and people are, oh, wow, these look incredible. And I think that sparked that little bit of an interest in just getting out and collecting different images and things like that, as well as a love of travel. And when I met my wonderful wife, she was a big, passionate traveler, someone whose her dad had worked for Qantas and therefore had traveled all around the world. And that sort of spurred this bit of a travel bug within me. And then going to these places, even though I had a little point and shoot, you start to get a few images and people are, oh, wow, this looks incredible. And I think that drove a bit of a desire just to show it off better. You take some images on your phone or a little point and shoot. And I remember we did Iceland and it was in winter and I tried to take some photos, as novice as it would have been way back then in the early 20s and in my early 20s, and took some photos of these northern lights and I thought they looked good. And then the person who was running the tour showed me his images afterwards that he'd taken. You go, okay, yeah, there's a big difference in standard.
There's a gap. Yeah.
And I think it was at that point I said, well, okay, yeah, a phone and a little point and shoot isn't going to cut it. I want to be able to take photos like that. I want to be able to see these things around the world and then be able to show them and share them to others that they can see. Just as incredible as it was, and because I was absolutely blown away by these Northern Lights images that were taken. And I guess that then drove me to buy my first DSLR before heading out, because we booked to go to Patagonia. And I remember as a kid, I had this book, Phil, my parents, they didn't buy me the greatest kids' presents, but it was this book called The Last Lonely Places. And on the front cover it was this photograph of Torres del Paine. And I had it in my room. I'd see it nearly every day. And it was just one of those places where I just want to go there. I just want to see this place. And to go there, I wanted to do it justice. So I bought a DSLR camera and made as many errors as you could imagine, going and first shooting over there, like not putting it in RAW and some of those things you learn along the way as you go. But I think, again, that it just spurred that sort of travel bug and that desire to get better. You come back and you start to do some processing and you get down that rabbit hole then of processing and you realize, oh, okay, yeah, to get an image to look like some of these other ones, I actually need to do something. I can't just point a camera and hope for the best. You got to do a bit more. So that then led, I guess, down to this idea of processing and gradually get into it. And then you jump on social media and that then opens up a whole new world and you realize, wow, there is just some amazing photographers out there that you never realized were there, and the images. And I guess that's kind of been the bit of the process where it's trying to, I guess, get better. Each time something I love, something I enjoy, traveling and getting to then photograph these images and share them with others so they can enjoy these areas that they may not be able to get to for whatever reason. Cool. So I think that's sort of a bit of the journey for me.
Yeah, okay. Were you entirely self-taught or did you take inspiration from other photographers in some form, or Talk to me a bit about how you armed yourself with the skills that you needed in terms of both in the field but also in processing.
Yeah, I think it's a very developmental thing. You just slowly pick up things as you go from talking to people. I think the early stages when I started to process images, I saw some images of Jimmy McIntyre, and they were really just phenomenal. And so I started to look at a bit of his work because he'd done some within Torres-del-Paine and Porto Natals and that where we were going. So I looked at some of his things, and he started to share it, and he does many that are free, which is great. So basically just started down that rabbit hole of YouTube and watching different processing. But I think if I was looking at some of the photographers along the way I've jumped on and looked at, he was the first one I really looked at for some of that post-processing. Then there's a guy, George Benz, and he had some more, again, free things on just YouTube, and you picked up a few things from him. Then I would say someone that was just absolutely inspirational, which I'm sure everyone would agree, Daniel Corden. Some of his work, and I was just, I guess, inspired to look at how he goes about his processes and that. So I picked up some of his work, and I think other photographers like Ryan Dyer, quite phenomenal. But it's mainly been just looking at YouTube videos. Christian Heuberg, I think, if you pronounce his name. So I've signed up to his email many, many years ago, and he shares a lot of great tips compositionally, particularly. And then I think it's just as you see images, you go, oh yeah, that's what makes a good image there. I can see how they've used that light in that scene. I can see how they've composed that. And you slowly, I guess, learn a few things, but definitely on that continual growth of learning and picking up all I can from others. But yeah, that would be the process, just slowly as I've gone along, just picking up little tips from different photographers. And I feel each year, my little Christmas present to myself, I buy a different tutorial just to look at, to see what, if there's a photographer out there that's got a certain style or a way of photographing a scene or that particular environment, and jump on and have a look at what they're doing.
Cool. So what is it that you're chasing most in your photography?
I'm not chasing. I think it's to be able to capture images that inspire people to get out, to travel, to want to see more of the world. I think that would be the ideal thing. A lot of people would say that, but if you can capture an image that can show just how grand and wonderful the world we live in, and that inspires anyone to get out and see that, I think that's a great goal. I think that would be my ultimate, because even tonight I was brushing my daughter's teeth, and I've got some prints put up, and randomly she's just pointed up and she's gone, "What's that white stuff in that image?" She's pretty little. I go, "Oh, that's snow." And she's like, "Oh, what's all that ice?" And it was a photo from Torres-del-Paine, actually, just of that glacier grey there. So this big jagged ice with these sheer peaks coming to a splendid scene. And I've gone, "Oh, that's what we call a glacier. It's a big lot of ice." And she just went, "Oh, wow." And you go, "Oh, that's cool." That's sort of what you want. Like, she was just so inspired by this landscape. And I think she's also got a bit of even as a young age, a travel bug to go out and explore. And she's a great little hiker. And I think that's part of what I enjoy most. And also what I'm chasing, just those times to yourself. It gets you out, photography. It's one of those things I would not normally get up at 5 o'clock in certain parts of the world when it's freezing or whatever and go out and get in that scene. But you have a lot to yourself, particularly in the early mornings. You get to see and experience things that you wouldn't otherwise. I think that's a great reason for photography. Aside from that, it just gets you out in nature, helps refresh you a bit as well, I think.
Yeah, okay. So you've shot all over the world. What locations are still on your bucket list?
I'd say a few. My top one would be the Pacific Northwest. I've not done that part of the US. I've done sort of the lower western part, around Arizona, Utah, Yosemite, even Yellowstone we've gone up to in the Grand Tetons, but not Pacific Northwest. So I think that is my number one area that I'm chasing. I love Arctic scenes. I love those cold winter scenes. I think coming from Australia, it's just stark contrast to what we get here. So I think I enjoy that. So I'd love to do potentially like Greenland, go and do a shoot down sort of around Antarctica. I think shooting some of the penguins around there and those icebergs would be amazing. So that'd be my top 3 areas that I'd like to go photograph: Pacific Northwest, in summer with the wildflowers, or even autumn with some of the fall foliage, Greenland and Antarctica.
Yeah, cool. Do you take an approach to your photography that sort of leans towards recording the experience, or are you sort of attempting to create art out of it? And I guess in your mind, which is the primary focus? Is it the art itself, or is it the experience that you're trying to sort of recreate?
Yeah, I think ideally a little bit of both. That you can take someone into the scene that you saw that morning, that you experienced, or that evening or night, whenever you've gone out, but also in a way to transform that image into something that is a bit dreamlike, but not something that's completely unrealistic, of course, but what you did experience, but something that has that little element to your own art, your own little flair on a particular image. So ideally, if you have an image and people go, oh yeah, I can kind of see exactly what you saw that morning, as well as being a bit, in awe of some of the scenes and the environment. I think that's ideal.
Yeah, okay. And are you looking to go into the field with a concept in your mind about what it is that that you want to shoot, or are you reacting to the landscape when you get there? And I guess I'm probably talking more about the stuff you might do locally, as opposed to, if you're planning to go to Patagonia, there's, reasons why you're going to Patagonia to get certain shots, and so forth. So I guess, in terms of that, concept of preconception, I guess, of what you're trying to capture versus, getting in the field and just going, okay, well, that looks like the shot, I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of both. I think going into the field, even locally, there's certain seasons which are going to suit, or certain times. Being on the coast up here, I would be looking at high tide for some shots, and then for others, I'd go at low tide, and others I'd need mid tide. So I'd have an idea of, okay, for this particular shot, we've got a lot of lone mangroves. I would aim for a lower tide, get a bit of that sand exposed to get some nice texture. Hopefully it's not a windy morning, because then that's just difficult with the movement in the trees. You're not getting that reflection. So you'd go, well, I need a bit of a low tide morning. I know if it's going to be calm, that's going to suit that. Or there's some areas which really suit that high tide, that nice bit of water going over the rocks, creating that good bit of flow. So I'd time it for that. Jacarandas, I know at Mullaney, a very popular shot. You've probably never seen that lone cherry tree at Mullaney before pop up on your feed. But, there's certain times where comes up every now and then. You get that bit of fog. So I'll go up there every now and then when there's that fog there, just to, again, create that dreamy sort of scene. Or in jacaranda bloom time, go for that. Even there's probably coming up soon, I'll head out around Kenilworth, because in the autumn foliage, there's this lovely stretch of road that just gets this wonderful gold. So again, if there's a foggy morning, sometime late May and early June, you'll see me there on the weekend, standing on the road trying to get the shot. But then often it is, reacting to the environment where the light is good. Sometimes you might go and go, I'm going to shoot here, but the colour's good over there, or you get this nice sunburst. I was photographing up near Uralla with the Goswich Chapel recently, and I had this idea. I wanted to shoot this scene, the road coming towards the chapel, but it just happened that the sun was not exactly coming through where I would have wanted. So I've rearranged to get a bit of a sunburst just as it's come up. Okay. I felt that created a bit more. So I think I go into the field having an idea of what I'd like to shoot, but then obviously you adjust depending on where the light is good. Or there's sometimes I've gone and there's been this nice little bit of framing which I've not seen before, and so I'll try and incorporate that into the image, just I guess keep the focus on your main focal point by being able to frame the image around. So certain things like that. Definitely have an idea of what I want to shoot, but it will change depending on what's happening in that environment.
Sure. Do you find the images you're trying to make distinctive or unique? And by that, I mean distinctive as in recognisable within a genre versus being one of the kind in a world, in the world being unique. What are
Yeah,
you
definitely.
aiming for there?
Yeah, I think when you look at all the images out there, there's certainly nothing new under the sun, as they say. But for me, I feel I've got a pretty distinctive style for me. Like it's consistent in some ways. There's
Mm-hmm.
obviously certain shots which it differs, but I certainly know some people have gone, oh, when they DM you and stuff, they go, oh, you've got this particular style here. I always know that's your image when I see it on my feed. So I think there's something that it's distinct to me, but it certainly wouldn't be different to what some other photographers are doing out there.
Yeah, right. How would you describe that style?
I think it's more it would be a low contrast sort of style. I try and put a bit of extra detail in, but it certainly has that low contrast where everything's sort of pushed more towards that mid-tone where you've got no real true black point that
Yep.
sort of moved down a bit. I'd like to kind of go for more, that dreamier type of feel where the highlights are certainly not clipped. I'm bringing the whites towards mids, bringing the blacks towards that mid as well. I'd put a bit of color in. I try not to obviously put the saturation slider all the way up, but boosting a bit more vibrance, reducing some colors and doing more local. So the saturation points where that light's hitting the rock or in certain areas of the scene rather than those global adjustments. So I think, looking after certain colors in my image, I'd probably have a general idea of in certain shadows, often will dodge with blues, and in highlights, dodging with some of those warmer colors.
Yeah.
Certainly bring shadows and mids more towards the blue, and the highlights in the image more towards that warmth. So I think that's something I would consistently do as to make it, I guess, my process.
Yep. Okay. So what about the process in the field? What are you sort of starting with when you walk out into the wilderness or somewhere and decide, okay, this is where I'm going to plant the tripod? How do you make that decision? What are you looking for?
I would say initially I use a lot of my phone, to be honest. So I'll go and just I'm there. I'll try and make sure I've got there well before sunset or sunrise, depending on what it is. And
Yep.
then I often will get my phone out and just try a few different things. So I find a few areas I might see, there looks to be this nice leading line or this tree which can frame nicely, or even putting the phone in between two rocks just to see if it works or if it's too confined
Okay.
the scene. So I take a lot of images like that, and then I'd go through, have a little bit of a flick to see which ones look the best, and then set up in that area. I'll often try and take some photos, and this is where some of the creativity comes in, which some people might not like and others, they might accept it. I can often, in my images, I'll do like a time blend where I might capture the light a bit earlier, where
Mm-hmm.
I've got that nice bit of light hitting, and you can get some of that good contrast with the light. And then for the scene, which may be a bit blown out, then I'll add that later scene at the back, maybe 10, 15 minutes later or earlier, depending on, if we're shooting at sunset or sunrise, and blend that in. So I think sometimes I'll try and take a few images of the scene in that place. And other times, if I've there's nothing like that, I often move around quite a bit. Instead of being too stationary, I'll tend to move around, and wherever I'm shooting, I'll always bracket to make sure later on, depending on, sometimes, to be honest, the dynamic range of cameras at the moment, particularly the Nikon that I have, it works nicely. But very rarely, unless I've really got those high contrast scenes, I need to do too much exposure blending. But certainly in some scenes, I make sure I've got that there, so I'm able to if I need to. And
Yeah.
I'll also focus stack. So I'll ensure that I focused, in the foreground, sort of mid, and on the back, whatever I've done. So again, I've got all of that detail later on if I do need to pick it up. Again, depending on the scene, some scenes that you don't have too much close in front of you, I won't bother. But some of those scenes are a bit more intimate in the foreground, definitely ensuring I've focus stacked. And that would probably be a bit of that process that I'd go through when shooting in a particular location.
Yeah. Okay. So sounds like the processing side of things is relatively involved. Walk me through what you do when you get your shots back and stick them on the computer. Are you straight into it, or do you just upload them, do a quick check, and then leave them to sit for a while before you get in and do serious edits?
Yeah, I think it sometimes depends. Often when traveling, I don't actually travel with a laptop always if I'm going overseas. One of the things with having a couple of kids is my luggage has suddenly been filled. Instead of being able to fill with a lot of camera stuff, there's a few more books and toys than would have otherwise been. So I find now I'm not necessarily traveling with his laptop as much as I would. If I'm at home, I'll often, if you have a great morning out or afternoon, I'll go and look at the images definitely. One thing that I need to get better at is certainly in the field, checking a bit more that detail after taking an image. I tend to do it, but sometimes what you quickly see when the LCD pops up isn't always as good as you might think from that little image. So that's something I certainly go back. But I'll come home, I'll download the images, I'll then refine them. I'll create what I call a keepers folder, which I take out some of the ones which I think, really worked or I preferred that. So I can then come back and then after I've gone through a set of images, I'll look and think, I would really like to edit this one. I tend to do easy edits to start with. So those that are a single exposure, no focus stacking, no time blending or anything like that. So I'll get in and do those ones a bit earlier, and then I'll save the more complex ones for a bit later when I'm feeling more motivated. I think just because you can get a few images of your trip out because they might have seen your stories, say on Instagram, and they're like, I really want to see some of those images. So put a few out anyway. And then later on, when I've got time, I'll come back to those other ones. Then for me, I'll find my image. I upload in Lightroom to start with. I do some basic things, correct chromatic aberration, lens correction. I'll then do white balance. That's sort of my first point. I'll do some white balance. I might do some general localize or change to exposure, dropping highlights, bringing up some shadows. Then I'll open up as a smart object in Photoshop, go through some basic ideas. I'll often look at color to start with and just, again, ensure that I've got my color where I want it to be. Again, as I said, looking at some highlights, warming them up a bit, maybe cooling some of my shadows and midtones. Then I'll look at my exposure, and assuming this is just a simple edit, if not, I would always do my exposure blending to start with, or focus stacking and all of that. So that's all there. I'll look at my exposure, make sure I've got it how I want, that my highlights aren't blown out, that my shadows aren't gone, and that's I'll tend to, as I've said, move everything a bit more towards my midtones at that stage. Then I'll often try and add a bit of contrast. So I'll go through and I often do a lot of the contrast just more to the midtone. So I'd create a mid 2 layer is probably my little favorite adjustment. Bring down, make it a bit darker from one end, make it a bit lighter from the other. So I add that bit of contrast in, and then I'll go through, do dodging and burning. And often I'll do a bit of color dodging, or depending on the scene, just general dodging. Again, color burning a little bit, darkening certain areas. We tend to do a bit more of a blue, just so you don't get that bit of a washed out yellow. I think often in the clouds, I try and, again, get that bit of contrast, do a bit of burning for the darks, do a bit of dodging for the lights, get that nice contrast in there. And then artistic things, I guess you could say, I add an Autumn effect on the images there, just to create a bit of that softer, dreamier feel. But then I'll always add that bit of extra texture and clarity in, particularly localized. I'll only ever add Autumn, though, to the lights, for example. So the darks, which shouldn't necessarily have that glow, don't have that real glow feel. Go through, remove little bits and pieces of the scene which don't match, and that's kind of a bit of the process there.
Yeah, okay, cool. How do you respond to, or you might not get feedback from people that say, "Oh, that's photoshopped," or whatever. How do you respond to those sorts of, I guess, bits of feedback that you might get that are on the negative side in terms of how much you've processed?
Yeah, and I think it's a balance. And when people say that image is photoshopped, they'll go, yeah, definitely. I wouldn't ever hide the fact that it's been photoshopped. It really is. And I think, to be honest, if someone's going, oh, you've had to Photoshop that image, they probably don't understand a little bit of the process. When you shoot in RAW, you do naturally, regardless what you're shooting, unless I think if you're you're a sports photographer, that's probably where you're going to have to do the least amount of little bit of recovery and stuff like that. But even then, you'd have to add a bit of saturation in. So regardless, I think if you're seeing generally an image online and it looks like it's got some good color and good contrast, something's been done with that image, whether it's Lightroom, whether it's Photoshop. So I think there's that element. I definitely think at times, and I could agree with some of that feedback, you look and you go, oh, you know what, I've probably pushed that a bit more than I would have liked, or probably should have pushed that image. And I think that's a constant reflection. And in a way, social media is difficult for it, because you can put out an image and you go, oh yeah, I'm more comfortable with that, I haven't pushed that too much, and it doesn't get any traction. And then you go and you reload it, say you push things a bit more, and all of a sudden it gets that attention because it's grabbed the eye. You've got that bit of extra color. But I certainly think anyway, with saturation, while I'm adding that increase of color, I like to think it's not ridiculous. There's definitely more, but it's not to a point where there's colors that just do not exist on Earth in my image simply because I've hit the saturation to 100%. So there is that balance. But yeah, definitely, I think you will get that criticism, and I wouldn't hide away from the fact that I do creative things. And I think as long as you're acknowledging that, so, there's an image I did from Mount Nunu in the Glasshouse Mountains, and specifically said, the foreground, I've taken that before the actual background there. So I've actually had to blend those over time. So it's not a secret that those things are being done. And for some people, they won't like that, and that's fine, as long as I'm not there going, this was one scene I happened to. I
caught all of this in camera, and I haven't done any of the edit.
Yeah, exactly. I think as long as you're transparent, and everyone has different levels that they're comfortable with, I think with Photoshop, and that's one of the challenges of people, where you want to take it and where you don't. And I think that's individual preferences.
Oh, definitely.
And as part of that creative and artistic process. But you certainly get it, and it's something that I don't personally mind too much, because I'm open and transparent that I am doing these different edits and adjustments in Photoshop or Lightroom.
Yeah, definitely. Are you doing photography full time, or is it just a hobby? And if it's just a hobby, why is that, given your obvious talents and capabilities in that regard?
I think, at the moment, it would be certainly just a hobby. I'm not thinking of packing up my day job and jumping into photography. It is one of those things that I think before you would leave a day job, you would want to have set yourself up as a business. You would want to be knowing that you've got the income already from it. It is definitely a saturated market. It is one of those things, you talk to people about photography and you say, I love photography and do a bit, and nearly everyone is a photographer these days out there. And I think it is hard to crack into that market. And if you're going to do it, you really need to commit. It's not one that you can kind of half put in and expect that you're going to make a complete business out of it. And for me, I think it's a bit of a time thing. As I've started to get into my photography quite heavily, it's coincided at the same time as having kids. And you go, well, where's my priority going to be? And I like to think, well, they're up, that is my priority. Apart from if there's 100% high cloud, then my priorities might shift a little and go out and shoot. But in that case, it's more, I would love to be able to do more as a business, but there's a lot of things that need to happen beforehand. Sure. And things that I'm hoping, to be honest, over the next year or so will be put out. I'd love to generate my own website and do those things, start to run sort of different, or put together some tutorials. A few people have asked recently on Instagram if I have any tutorials that I can do, and I've been thinking about it for a while. So to put some of those things out, sharing some of those things that I've learnt, being able to get into more selling prints. Instagram and other social media is fantastic in that regards, because you get reach without having to generate necessarily that website and maintain that. Oh, sure. And so you're able to put things like that. But yeah, I'd love to have it as something where I go into that, but I'm also cautious of photography, something I love. It's something I really enjoy. And often if we try and make everything we do that we enjoy into a business, you can lose some of that enjoyment of what you appreciate.
Kill the joy.
Yeah, definitely. If all of a sudden you're going, okay, well, this shoot, my income is dependent on me getting this shoot, instead of going, I'm just enjoying the scene and being out in nature, I think it also can shift as well. So while I'd love to, I think, do a bit more and put a few more things out there, I don't necessarily see photography ever being something I'd love to pursue completely full time, as I think it would, I don't know, it would destroy a little bit of that element of just going out and enjoying nature, going for a hike. And, sometimes if you can get a shot that's fantastic, but nothing's depending on it.
Yeah, right. So do you see photography as a bit of an escape from your day-to-day world, or is it just something that you just do?
Yeah, definitely. I think getting out in nature, and as I said, particularly early mornings where there's less people around and you're in these scenes and you're all by yourself and nothing there, it's I think a great experience, and why a lot of photographers do like that and love to get into some of these remote places, as you just get to experience them. So I definitely think for me, photography, it's one of those ones where I would say initially I started off loving doing that. And photography was just one of those ways that I was able to then share some of those experiences with others.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When was the last time you went overseas and, with shooting in mind?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember now.
Pre-COVID, I'd imagine.
It obviously is pre-COVID. I'm trying to think of my last destination I went overseas. It was New Zealand. So I went over New Zealand in summer, trying to shoot some of the wildflowers that get out there, the lupin. It was South Island of New Zealand. So we went out, and so it was a great trip. However, it was one of those trips where the weather it was either completely clouded or just clear skies. It wasn't that nice, happy medium where you can get a bit. So I didn't come away with as many images as I would like. There was, of course, it seems to be, if I go to New Zealand, just to pre-warn people, it floods. So I think my last 3 or 4 New Zealand trips, it's flooded. So it stopped us getting some. And this trip was no different. There was again a flood, so we couldn't get around and were restricted in for 4 or 5 days. So probably missed out on a lot of the shots I would have liked to get. But in a way, that keeps you going. If you just get that perfect weather every time you get that shot you want, you might not be driving to chase it as much. So,
okay. Has the pandemic changed your attitude towards travel, in particular around photography?
In a way, I think what the pandemic's done probably for a lot of us is it's made me explore more local areas. So I've started to try and appreciate and think, well, what can I actually shoot around here? Previously, I did little local photography, which I know sounds weird, but it was more being able to go and travel and shoot these other destinations. But obviously during the pandemic, I've gone and I've tried to shoot a lot more local areas, and I've probably gained a greater appreciation for what we have here. Even in Australia, that would be, I'd say my last obviously 4 or 5 trips have been within Australia, and just to photograph some of those landscapes there, I've gained a lot greater appreciation for what Australia has to offer landscape-wise. It's probably not naturally one of the big landscape destinations that comes to people's minds around the world. But yeah, I feel it's got a lot to offer, and it's probably driven a lot more of an enjoyment in seascape photography than I previously had. I probably really love the mountains and those type of areas, but I've enjoyed getting out and doing seascapes because it's so changing, and that almost drive to capture that flow, that perfect wave receding or coming in, that motion, I've really enjoyed. So it's probably changed my attitude, made me be a bit more creative with what I'm looking at for around my local area, and gain that great appreciation of just, what is around me and what Australia has to offer landscape-wise.
So you're in Brisbane. How would you describe that for landscape photography opportunities, I guess, or are you travelling further afield?
Yeah, I'm northern Brisbane. So for me, I tend to, as far as things go, head more towards the Sunshine Coast. And I think that offers a lot of good opportunities. My favourite area to shoot would be up at Mullaney, just that mountain areas of the Glasshouse Mountains. They're really quite distinct in their shape, and there's a few lone trees up there. We've got, you've got your cherry tree shot. You've also got that tree that kind of bends out nicely. There's a shot with the jacarandas. There's a shot which I haven't been able to completely pull off in the right conditions, where have this nice framing of trees almost in the shape of a love heart. So I've gone a few times and just haven't been able to come away with the image that I want. So you have a lot of those type of things up there. So I'd go there or towards the coast. A lot of those coastal scenes, Dolphin Rock, probably a big one I'd go to, but just haven't come away with the image I want, but that keeps driving me. Lake Wabar with the Wabar tree, again, one that you would have seen if you follow social media, really quite nice. So I'd probably head more towards that Sunshine Coast area. Locally, we've got our mangroves. That's kind of the main shot. There's a few nice lone mangroves, a D-Bay one there at Redcliffe and at Beachmere. So that would probably be my real quick. If the sunset's looking great, I'll jump out for the Beachmere or the Redcliffe one because they suit the sunset. Or if it's a nice sunrise, I might head to D-Bay or Nudgee and just get destroyed by sandflies as the play. So I think that's kind of the main areas where I would look to shoot around locally. And when you compare to some of the world landscapes, shooting a mangrove isn't the same. But I think that's a challenge of it, is being able to present this little mangrove, this environment, but to try and showcase it in the way that it is unique and different and reveals some sort of, I guess, dream-like image or shots the goal.
Sure. Yeah, that's I think one of the greatest challenges is finding something that, many people would just pass by on a day-to-day basis and not really take a second look at and turn that into something that's quite artistic. I guess, do you have a favourite spot that you keep returning to, or you mentioned the love heart trees there where you haven't quite nailed it? Is there anything that you, I guess, will return to regularly?
Yeah, I'd say Mullaney for me, where I live, up that area, looking at the Glasshouse Mountains, is an area I'll go to. There's a few of the Glasshouse Mountains shot. There's one that hasn't turned out too bad. I just need to probably refine it a little bit, where you've got this nice road leading up to Mount Coonarin and just trying to capture that with different environments. They've got a nice fog and mood and a nice sunset with a good light trail going through. So there's a few of those images, but it's one of those ones where you go, I haven't quite got that. And I think when you're photographing your local area, you're a bit more selective or picky, compared to when you go and you go someplace and you're there for 2 or a couple of weeks, you can't pick your ideal conditions. And I think that's where then the challenge of Photoshop editing comes in, where you go, okay, I haven't got the conditions here. It's complete greyed out sky or a complete clear sky. What can I do to produce this to make it look a bit more, unique, or reveal something where locally you can go, all right, I've got this shot. I'm not going to post it up yet because I think I can find something that bit better and suit that for that particular shot there. But but I definitely think Glasshouse Mountains for me, where I am just 30 minutes down the road, that's probably my go-to area. There's a couple of shots where I'm looking at the moment. Milky Way, I've not done a lot of astro images.
Okay.
So I want to get nice Milky Way over that lone cherry tree there at Mullaney. And there's a nice little mangrove at Golden Beach at Caloundra. And it's just got this unique shape. And right now is the perfect time to line it up with the Milky Way. But I'm not sure what it's like for you down south. But at the moment, it's just wet up here. So the clear skies have not been prevalent.
Yeah, it's much the same. I went out. There was a promise on one of the apps this morning for 100% high cloud and 6% low cloud. I think I got the opposite because I couldn't see the high cloud.
Yeah. And it's always that way, isn't it?
Basically went for a walk in the rain on a beach. So
Yeah, and I think that's the big issue at the moment. Some of the conditions just haven't been as nice for us. So there's been a few. There's a nice Sydney shot I saw many people pop up the other day of some beautiful cloud and colour. But few and far between up here recently.
We've been lucky a few times, but it hasn't been as frequent as I think everyone would like. But never mind. It's just the way it goes.
Definitely.
You got to that's it. You got to either get creative or go somewhere else.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what's the most memorable experience you've had?
I'd have to say photographing the Northern Lights. That would be my most memorable. Obviously, Did Iceland the first time and completely failed with the old point and shoot, as if that was ever going to succeed. And we ended up coming back in another season. We went in autumn, and at that stage, while the Northern Lights, they were nice, they were more just, I would almost say, slight green flickering in the sky. And again, the first night in Iceland where we had some clear weather, I saw it and I started thinking, yeah, that's cool. And it came up nice on the camera, but I wasn't blown away. And then the next night we went out, and yeah, it was proper, what you might call Northern Lights, where you just had this incredible greens and pinks and just dazzling light over. And I was able to capture, it's one of the ones that I've got on of Kirkjufell, there, that church mountain with the Northern Lights a little bit reflected in the water. It was nice and calm. I think just, the first time seeing the Northern Lights proper. And then again, we got them when we were in Lofferton in winter. And that was even better. It was more spectacular. Unfortunately, I was just so flustered with how good it was that I didn't come away with any great shot. I didn't consider all the light pollution, and they just all looked a bit yellow. And I didn't do the best job. So I learned a lot though from that time of correct shutter speeds and things. So next time I go over, I think I'll be able to have a better crack at it. But that would be my number one. I think the second one would be sunrise at Torres del Paine. Just seeing that, even though I completely stuffed up the shot again, I feel early days of photography wasn't kind to me. We got there and we'd had a lot of travel. You fly to Sydney, you fly into Santiago, then we ended up catching a flight to Punta Arenas, driving in there, and I was absolutely shattered by the time we got there. And that night, set the alarm, and the weather looked good. We hadn't been able to see the mountains. It had been raining the night before. And I think I just stayed up all night, excited just to be able to shoot it. And I set the alarm for whatever it was, but did PM instead of AM. Oops. And I've woken up and I've woken up and the room was light. I look out, and oh no. So I quickly ran out, and there's just incredible color, the mountains aglow. Go to set up, and for whatever reason, I'd left my camera on and the battery was flat. So I had to quickly run back, get the spare battery, put it in. So by the time I got back, most of the good light was gone. I couldn't find a great composition, but seeing it was amazing. I think those two were just the most awe-inspiring landscapes that I've ever experienced. And they want me to go back just because I haven't come away with the shots that certainly happy with. So I think that's a great thing of photography. You can see these things, but you want to go back to be able to truly do justice to it.
Yeah, okay. So any plans for the next trip? Where next?
Yeah, a few trips we've got booked coming up. As a school teacher, I've got the flexibility of school holidays. Great advantage of it that although you have to travel with the masses. So in June, July, the winter school holidays, we're doing New South Wales. So go to Port Stephens, spend a few nights there doing, Stockton Sand Dunes, Zenith, Mount Tomaree. Then we go into the Blue Mountains. And obvious how incredible that is for landscape opportunities. Then Central Coast. So again, chasing a few images from the Central Coast. That's June, July. September, doing South Australia. So Flinders, Kangaroo Islands, and a lot of that, South Australian beaches. And at the end of the year, we've got our COVID tickets, which we booked many, many years ago to go to Europe in summer. But unfortunately, we have to use it by the end of the year. And the only time we can get some decent amount of time is winter. So going over to Europe in December. So we'll do a little bit of Portugal, northern Spain, and Germany. So fantastic. Hopefully able to get a few nice images from those. So that's kind of this year mapped out for a few places to go to.
Nice. What do you think you've learned about the world through photography?
I think traveling is just one of those ones that teaches you so much. One of the experiences was hiking in Nepal. And I think one of those things, just getting to see, it was an amazing experience, just how simple things were compared to what we're used to. And that yet the amount of joy and happiness and the kids there and everything was amazing. And it just kind of showed what you need to be happy isn't necessarily all the things that we fill our lives with. And just the simplicity that they had. So I think that was one of the traveling and photographing that was just one of those experiences that taught me a lot. I think I feel very fortunate being in Australia and living in Australia as a country. I know a lot of travel coming back. It is an amazing place to live. I think Australia and what we have and what it offers. So I think some of that it's taught me a little bit, but also just how incredible the world is. I know areas like the Dolomites and getting to hike and experience some of those mountain ranges was as another area I haven't mentioned was absolutely stunning, and another area I'd love to go back and do again sometime.
Yeah, fantastic. Have you ever hit a creative wall?
Yeah, definitely. I think it happens more frequently than I'd like. You kind of get stuck on some images and you process it 3 or 4 times, and you have this scene and you go, that was a stunning sunrise. Everything worked together, but just can't seem to put it together in a way that really does it justice. So I think definitely throughout, I hit those periods where I might then try a different image and that just doesn't come off. And again, and you do 3 or 4 and it just doesn't work. And and often need that time just to step away. And even one of the things that I've learned a bit, and the importance of getting others' feedback. And often as a photographer, we on Instagram, on social media, you would never criticize someone's work. So we often do stunning image, great shot, looks amazing, but you don't get
Six
that.
tones, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that feedback. And I think sometimes when you do, there's certain people that, in hindsight, it's great. They give you this bit of feedback like, oh, I don't like your color choice there, or I would have removed that. You initially go, oh no, but then it does teach you a lot. Because I remember one person on social media, they were on 500px, if you know that site. And every time, and every time I do an image, one of the great things is they would find something they didn't like about it, and you're waiting for it. And I was almost excited because I'm like, I wonder what's going to be this time.
Same person every time?
Yeah, it was the same person each time. Yeah, okay. And that it was constructive. It helped, but it was you learned so much by going, okay, I should be doing that. Oh, yeah, I could pick that up, or oh no, I actually don't think that myself. But finding others to learn from, and just being able to get that feedback. And Instagram's fantastic for it because there's just so many photographers chasing that same thing, where you can go, hey, have a look at this image. How would you do it? What do you think? Because often you get an image and you think the color looks good because you've been staring at it, but all of a sudden someone looks at it and go, oh, those yellows look like cheese, or whatever it is. You get that thing that it just absolutely it hits them, and you haven't noticed it because you've been staring at it for so long.
You get very deep into your processing at some points, and you kind of lose your way and forget what the objective is.
Oh, definitely. So I think, I've certainly hit those creative walls, and one of the ways is take a bit of time back, but certainly to seek the feedback from others. Yeah, I think that's something where initially in my photography, whether you call it immaturity, that you don't like to hear negative things because you might be a bit more self-conscious to start with in your own work, but it's something I think I now value a lot more, being able to get that constructive feedback. And while not all the time you go, I agree with that, but it's good to see how others are thinking and where they would go, and you can learn a lot.
I think it's one of the greatest skills as a creative person that you can have is both receiving but also learning how to give constructive feedback. And interestingly, the more you learn about how to give constructive feedback, the more you learn about how to receive it. And I think, there's a lot of people that could probably do with training in that regard around understanding, how to give constructive feedback, because, not all feedback that you get is going to be constructive, and that's, just the nature of the beast. But
it is.
I think it's a really important lesson for anyone that's in a creative field to grasp hold of, because as you say, it really helps you extend yourself, and it helps you understand what you might be. You might fall into habits that might take you down a path that means that there's going to be either less likes or less people buying your work and putting it on their walls.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think if you can find someone, and whether you call it a mentor or whatever, but a few photographers that you really trust and you can take on their feedback, and they're good at providing that feedback. I think that's really beneficial for anyone to be able to grow.
Definitely. So what do you see as being the future of social media? We've seen the changes to Instagram leaning more towards video, and sort of the growth of photography within the Twitter space. News today that Elon Musk is now buying Twitter, so that'll be an interesting outcome. But I guess where do you see social media in terms of where it's going, and in relation to photography and landscape photography in particular?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Like, to be honest, haven't been on Instagram as long as a lot of other people. I think I jumped on, a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Sure.
And as a result, I've seen, even in that short time, definitely this big shift towards the videos. And it's that competition, I guess, with TikTok, where you're trying to get on that. And that has been a bit of a shift, because for me, I like my photography. I don't necessarily get into as much of that videography side of things.
Yep.
And therefore I'd probably be left behind a bit in that instance at the moment. While I like to chuck a video on a story, just so people can see, hey, this was the morning, this is what I experienced. Because I think it's always good to go, people go, oh yeah, that's what you saw, and then that's your image. And just to be able to see those contrasts, so some people can see that creative element. But I definitely have not jumped on the big videography side of things, and it's a definite shift. And I see a lot of people now, as you've said, jumping onto Twitter as that different space, as a way of sharing that, where they haven't gone down that path. And I have no understanding or idea what it used to be like, where people talk about their reach on Instagram and what makes your image get onto whatever you might refer to that explore page, or have other people getting that exposure to it. But from what people say, I think that's all changed at the moment, where there is this big push towards that videography side of things. So there's that definitely changing nature. I think social media, I didn't appreciate it as much as I did initially, with some of the important role it plays. I think it helps connect you with other photographers. And one thing I've loved about being on Instagram is, recently went to Tasmania, and I've posted a few stories, and then all of a sudden people are like, hey, where are you? Do you want to catch up and shoot? And I've got to meet many different people, where I go to these different places where I just wouldn't normally meet. Even talking about end of the year, going over to Germany and Spain, there's already some Spanish photographers and German photographers that are saying, yeah, when you get here, let us know. We'll catch up. We'll go for a shoot. I'll show you around. So you get that nice connections with social media. I think that's a real great part of it. Where it ends up heading, I certainly wouldn't be the best person to ask. I'm not on Twitter yet, but it's definitely something that considering, because it seems like that is where people are jumping onto at the moment, to be able to show their photography and that, compared to Instagram, given the amount of people that are now seeing their feeds just completely videos and those type of things.
Yeah, okay. Do you think there's any particular challenges coming up for photographers that we need to be facing into?
I think one of the big shifts is the amount of tools available to edit images now than what there might have been previous. I'm not someone who's jumped on Luminar. I haven't given it a go, but there's a lot of talk on that, and some of the powers and AI that can be done to be creative, where it takes away some of the controls. I even see this big presets movement, where there's just, it seems like, basically, I think because I look at a lot of photography things, the amount of ads I get even on Facebook for presets and these one-click edits. And I think that's a bit of a challenge, because in my opinion, there's no one click that you can do for every image, because every bit of light's different, every scene's different. And also even the AI just letting some computer determine, based on an algorithm of liked photos, what is meant to be appealing or what should be done. I think that takes away, again, a bit of that creativity side of things.
I don't even like hitting the auto button in ACR.
I didn't even know there was an auto button in ACR. I'll have to check it out. I'll see what it suggests.
Well, it's on your basic panel, and it's same as Lightroom. And basically, it'll adjust your exposure to what it thinks is the right exposure. It'll adjust your highlights, etc., etc. It won't adjust.
Where's it put it? Where would you say it does it mostly?
It tends towards a fairly, I won't say very high contrast, but a fairly high contrast sort of image. I know because I kind of expose for the highlights in a lot of my shooting, but it tends to shift the exposure in particular way higher than I ever would. If I was to adjust it at all, a lot of what I do is like yourself, exposure blending if I'm, looking for higher dynamic range. So, it's one of the reasons why I don't touch the button is because I don't really shoot in a style that would be suited to it. I've played around with it to see what it does and, so forth. But I can honestly say I'm not a fan of it. I like to move my sliders around myself,
Yeah, definitely have that bit of control. Even though I think sky replacement, that's one of those controversial topics where everyone's different. It takes almost a bit of the joy out of capturing that scene and coming back to it if you can just drop something in whenever you want. But again, it's everyone's preference. But I think there's some of the challenges with the new technologies that come out and these one-click edits. I'm
definitely not a fan of the AI leaving it to the computer to decide. I know that there are some people that are happy with that, and they're more than happy to just push a button and have it all come out the other end. But as you said, I think the light in every scene is going to be subtly different. Even just using the same settings. In a sunrise shoot, for example, the light changes so quickly that even if I don't change the settings of the camera, I'm going to get different exposure values each time I shoot over a 5, 10, 15-minute period. And so therefore I can't see that preset X or Y is really going to, make it better when I know that I've got things that I can control, and I know what I'm, shooting for and doing to try and adjust it. So I got to agree. I'm not a big fan of those automated ways of doing things, but maybe I'm an old school guy. But so, what do you think is your favourite thing about being a photographer?
I think probably my favourite thing of being a photographer is it gets me out. It puts me in these scenes where I wouldn't otherwise go and see, and it's, I guess, fueled that passion for travel and experiencing new places.
Yep.
And there's nothing like getting out in the scene. I even remember, recently we went to Tasmania and I shot at Horseshoe Falls one morning. I was really pretty happy with the images I got. It was nice. And the next morning I'm like, don't I go? And I ended up just going, all right, I'm here. I'm going to go. I get in the field. And for me, I've never seen a platypus, and I chase platypus so often. I've gone to those places which are like, hey, this is a guaranteed platypus. And you'll get there and everyone goes, oh, wow, did you see that? It's amazing. Oh, cool. I'm going to see it. And then it just goes. So I've always missed it. But that particular morning, all of a sudden, I noticed this little platypus walking out, and then it starts playing in the waterfall, and it stayed there for a good couple of minutes. And that was just an amazing thing, which if I wasn't photographing, I wouldn't have gone out at all. It wouldn't have, been anything on my radar, but I got to have this experience, which I never would have if it wasn't for photography and getting out. Yeah.
Very cool. What's your least favourite thing about being a photographer?
Early mornings. Definitely.
I hear that a lot.
Just actually getting up. And I think, when you're traveling, particularly in some parts of the world where the sun sets really late and gets up really early, and you're going, I can live off 3 hours of sleep for the next month. Just getting out. So I think, getting up early is one of the hardest things. I think the other thing I don't like about being a photographer is some of the costs of getting the equipment. So I've just got a Nikon D810, so it's starting to certainly age, and looking at mirrorless cameras, and I thought, I have a bit of a look what they were and saw some of the price tags and thought, D810 is pretty good actually.
Yeah,
I think
hang on for a bit
I'll
longer.
stick with it for a bit longer. Yeah.
I'm a little bit the same. I'm still hanging on to my 6D Mark II, and it'll do me for a little bit longer. But
yeah, definitely until I break
mind
it.
you, I've almost killed it a few times, and it was then that I started looking around, and I do have my eye on the R5.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's a hard question, isn't it? The R5, some of the new Nikon mirrorless, or the Sony, which is probably a bit of the leader.
I've got a lot of Canon glass that cost me a lot, so I don't want to chuck that away when I can use a $200 adapter to use it. So
yeah, no, definitely. No, I agree. I think I've tried to kill my camera several times, and somehow it just keeps surviving. So we'll keep going with it while it can.
What tips would you have for somebody that's just starting out and looking to get into landscape photography?
I think one of the first things I'd say is buy a tripod. Often when you can go to these sunsets and sunrises, there's a lot of people. And while I think a tripod can limit you, and sometimes it's great to not have a tripod, I definitely think to be able to capture some of the scenes and the light, which is particularly good, which I guess would flow into the second tip, which is shooting during that golden hour of light instead of that real high contrast middle of the day type of light. But being able to have that tripod just means that you're able to set up your scene. You can ensure that you've got that good focus. You're able to have those longer exposures to capture that light and that bit of movement. Say you want a waterfall, or that shutter speed that you need for some of that surf photography. And I see a lot of the new cameras that are quite great in their handheld ability, and that's come a long way. Definitely. But I think one, I'd say, get a tripod just so you can capture some of those scenes. Two, shoot more within that golden hour period where you've got that nice even light. And three, actually take post-processing serious. I think that's one of those things which when I first started out, I was just like, I don't want to have to process an image. I just want to be able to take it and capture it. But I think
you should use presets.
Yeah, I could. Yeah. Don't use that fourth tip. Let's add a fourth in there. Don't use one-click presets as another tip. But definitely, I think just spending that time to learn that post-processing, so you can actually start to get your images looking how you want them to look. And if you're shooting in RAW, which add tip number 5 in there, you're able to then bring back some of that color that might be lacking. So I think some of those tips just starting out would be what I'd give.
Fantastic. What do you like to do when you're not out shooting?
I'd say spend time with family.
Yeah,
definitely. That would be the big thing. I think it's great being a dad and having those young kids and growing up, and particularly that young age where they actually love you and want you is a nice feeling until
they come back to that. But it does, they do come back to that, but it takes years.
That's funny, yeah. So I think, I enjoy that. Watching Too Much Bluey for all those people who are also parents out there, but just getting the spend time with them, being in nature, even not photographing, just getting out hiking, I enjoy, even if I don't have a camera there. But that would be some of the big things. And I'd probably spend way too much time travel planning as the hobby to get to the next destination.
Fair enough. So are there any photographers out there you think I should be talking to on the podcast?
For Australian photographers?
It doesn't matter, but, whoever you think.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really great Australian photographers that I think given the fact I've been shooting a lot more within Australia, I've been looking for a lot of them. I guess putting in different categories, I think some of the more extreme shots, and I love seeing where he goes, Matt Finn.
Yep.
Just where he's able to access, and his ability to chase a waterfall in good flow is unreal. So I'd really, I think he's got some unreal stories he could tell.
Yeah. I like him for his ability to survive some of what he does.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm getting nervous every time. I feel, I'm a little bit of heights phobia coming in when I see some of his shots.
My backside tightens every time I see a reel or a a story come up from Matt.
Oh, definitely. I think Chungy Photos. I've just got his Instagram handle there, but his work is outstanding, and I think the effort he goes to. So Hisu Chung, I think is his name there.
Yeah.
His effort is incredible, where he can just stay out all night and he'll capture the scene at sunset, do the star trails, capture it at sunrise. So you've got light hitting both sides of this peak with this star trail, and it's second to none. I think that's absolutely incredible. I would say Johnny James, I love the way he processes his image. Johnny James and Jeff LaPara, however you say that. Someone I probably contact a lot because I really value their opinion in editing is Brett Wood.
Okay.
He's really good at creating quite a natural looking scene, nice bit of colour, stays a bit more true to what the scene is. So I think some of those, it's hard to say because there's so many, but on the spot, I think those ones come to mind.
Great. Thank you very much. I've got one more question, and for a lot of people in not only photography, but particularly in the landscape photography community, it's one of the most important issues. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
Have to have pineapple on pizza.
Really?
Yeah, I think pineapple on pizza makes it big pineapple on
Hawaiian
pizza
all
fan.
the way.
Huh?
Hawaiian,
yeah, definitely. I'm unfortunately celiac, so gluten and dairy intolerant. So my pizzas aren't as tasty as they used to be. But yeah, I'll make sure I put pineapple on it to set it off.
Fantastic. It's been absolutely marvellous catching up with you, Glen. Where can people find your work?
Instagram's probably the one I'm most active on. So Glen Sinclair _photography on Instagram. I do still sometimes maintain a bit of the work on some of the other social media sites like Flickr. That might seem like an ancient word, but apparently, it's still around. And 500px, I still have some of those things because one thing I enjoy about them is you've got that landscape shots, and I tend to shoot that more 3:2 in that landscape, where Instagram suits more of that portrait sort of style. So I think, if you want more of that landscape work on there, and eventually coming soon, hopefully, when I get some time, a website.
No worries.
That's the goal.
I'll put some links in the show notes.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for that.
All right. Well, thanks again, Glen.
Oh, great chatting with you. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show, and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.